Celebrating 65 years as your hometown news station. This is KHQ Local News at 5.
Tonight at 5, not in our community, but it happened. A school shooting at Freeman High School.
The whole Freeman community is a victim today.
4 students shot, one of them killed.
Somebody that had a lot of courage stepped up and stopped this before it got worse.
Lives changed forever.
Even some of our state troopers, they have kids that go to school here. That's a lot to take from a first responder's perspective.
Panicked parents holding tight to their kids tonight. A surge of emotion as the unthinkable became real.
And a good evening to you tonight. I'm Stephanie Vigil along with Dan Kleckner. I tell you what, these are the stories we never really want to cover, ever.
Yeah, you know, Steph, some 300 plus students go to this school at Freeman High School behind us. And unfortunately, today kind of marks the beginning of a new reality,
That's
sad
right.
new reality.
Very true. And today we had continuous coverage since the moment we very first heard Kalai Chalk and Sean Owsley went on the air, and they did not stop the coverage until we found out all the information. We're still getting more information. We hope to bring that to you, but
we have big team coverage for you tonight, as you might expect. Let's take it back to the KHQ studio. Sean and Clyde, you were there. You were inside anchoring our coverage when this thing broke early this morning.
Right, Dan and Steph, as you mentioned, we've been on the air for most of the day.
Let's go through now what we know as of tonight, right now. The first call came out around 10:15 this morning, shots fired. We know one student shot 4 other students.
One of those students was killed. Sheriff Ozzie Knezevich says that student was trying to tackle the gunman when that happened, when he was shot and killed. 3 other students were injured. They're listed in satisfactory condition at Sacred Heart. But we've been learning also new information all afternoon.
Let's go back out to Dan and Steph at Freeman High School.
all right, thank you guys. KHQ's Katie Chen, she's at Freeman High School with us right now, and police have been trying to really sort out what happened and why.
Yeah, Katie, what have the investigators been able to piece together so far?
Well, Dan and Steph, like you said, there are a lot of pieces to put together. They've been doing hundreds of interviews. I've told more than 300 probably will be done at the end of this investigation. And just take a look behind me. You can still see all this crime scene tape. All this place is still roped off around here at Freeman High School. And Sheriff Ozzie Knezevich says that they are still deep into their investigation, but this could be the case of bullying that led to this. So far here is what we do know. The student did come to the school armed and took out a weapon. The first weapon jammed, and another student walked up to him, tried to tell him, "You don't want to do this." Unfortunately, that student was shot and killed. Then the shooter fired down the hallway, hitting 3 teens who are now in the hospital. The sheriff does say that it sounds like a staff member was able to stop the shooter and hold him until authorities arrived.
Send our heart out to those parents that have students in the hospital. And we send our prayers out to the mother whose student is not coming home today. These are senseless and tragic events that really don't need to happen. And I don't understand them. I don't think anybody can make any sense out of this. But we need to figure out what's gone wrong with our society, that our children decide that they need to take weapons to deal with the issues that they're facing.
Now, I did speak with someone who says he is friends with that alleged shooter, and he also told me that in the days leading up to this, apparently the shooter was watching some school shooting documentaries. Reporting live in Freeman, Katie Chen, KHQ Local News.
All right, and back here in the studio, this is what unfolded. If you're unfamiliar with exactly where Freeman is, let's show you what happened, and then we'll take you in closer to show you how logistically law enforcement handled the rush of parents coming in, obviously frantic, panicked, wanting to reunite with their child. This is the Freeman area. You see Spokane Valley. If you go, take the Pines exit and you head south, it's about 25 miles to the south here in the Freeman. Let's take you in a little closer here now. As you look at this area, this is Pines that turns into Highway 27, takes you near Rockford. The high school sits off to the right. The Freeman store is right here. Let's give you a little closer view here. The school is obviously where this incident took place. And as we move you to the students were evacuated to the football field. That's where parents were trying to get to. We saw cars lined up on Highway 27. Eventually, the barn there is where the parents met the students, and in fact, they had to walk through the access road here and show photo ID for the parents to get in, talk directly face-to-face with authorities, and then eventually the ultimate goal was to be reunited with their child, which happened throughout the morning as law enforcement responded. But let's go back out now at Freeman High School, and Dan and Stephanie.
So I was like, I just parked my car and screw them, I'm out of here.
And when we were coming out here, the lines were long, literally miles long, parents trying to get to their student.
Yeah, video here, it was very eerie to see this. There was literally rows and rows, a mile or two of cars stretching down Highway 27 as you head towards the Spokane area. And these parents, with just this look of emotion in their face, they were so frantic to find out, is my child okay?
I pulled up alongside one woman who literally had tears in her eyes, and I rolled down my window. I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "I've heard from all three of my kids. I just can't get to them right now." So it was very tough. And as Peter Maxwell steps in right now, you talk to some of them, and I tell you what, there is nothing that will get in the way of a parent searching for their child.
No, there isn't. And, you know, they were frantically running from miles. I talked to one couple who was coming here to talk to their son, and they were walking for 1.5 miles just to get up here, and they were very frantic. And I mean, the cars were parked along Highway 27 for miles, and students and parents were wiping away tears when they were being reunited. And I did speak to a sophomore student, Liam Marshall, who shared a bus with the alleged shooter, and he said he was calm and his headphones were in and he was carrying a black duffel bag.
I heard a gunshot. Me and my friends thought it was just a random sound. I guess I just feel safe, I guess. Everything's okay now.
In a classroom, he was finally reunited with his mother. You know, I couldn't imagine what Liam was going through in that classroom, especially with everything that was just going on.
Peter, it was hard for us to describe, but you were here as well. Maybe you can help us what it was like for us to watch these parents with their children being ushered from the one area where they were reunited off to home. And it was like we were watching what we report on TV, but it was right in front of us.
It was. I mean, it's something that you don't really think that would happen to you. You'd see it on TV, and when it happens here in such a small community, I mean, you just can't really wrap your head around it. You can never really prepare yourself for something like this, and to cover something like this, it's heartbreaking.
And it was interesting to see some of the parents' reaction. Understandably so, did not want to speak with us, and we gave them the space that they so deserve.
Completely
but you could tell that there was a protection mode. That they wanted to keep their kids safe and get them home.
That's right. We asked them, would you talk with us for a few moments? The ones that said yes, so polite, and they did that with their parents. We would tell them, bring your parents on in with you, just for comfort. But talking about one young man who was so brave, standing by his father, and his little brother was clearly a grade schooler with tears in his eyes, and it was a very tough day for everybody in this community, and even folks in Spokane. Everybody knows somebody from Freeman, and I always say we love coming up here for Teacher of the Month and Friday Night Football, but never for a situation like
Peter,
this.
Thank you. Our team coverage continues now inside the KHQ studios. Let's go back to Sean and Kalai.
Well, you heard Peter describe the situation. Imagine getting that call that there's been a shooting at your child's school and you can't reach them to ask if they're okay. That's what happened to hundreds of parents. They lived through that today. And the moment they were reunited with their children was incredibly emotional, as you could imagine. KHQ local news reporter Adam Mayer is sharing some of those stories tonight.
Well, Kalai, as you guys can see, we are standing here right in front of the high school, but my photographer, he had to park all the way down. Peter was mentioning that the traffic was backed up for 1 mile, and at one point it was bumper to bumper on Highway 27. Parents were even getting out of their cars, running or walking to the school just to see if their kids were safe. And we spoke with one woman. Her name is Susan Marshall. She says she couldn't wait to wrap her arms around her son and her daughter.
I'm not a person who panics, and he had been texting with me, so I just was trying to find him. It was actually harder to get Ellie, who's in 6th grade, because they didn't quite know where the kids were. The high school kids had all been evacuated to the football field, so they were easier to find.
Now, thankfully for Susan Marshall, she says that she's been in this situation before, not in a situation for a school shooting, but she's actually a trauma nurse, so that's why she was saying that she doesn't panic in a situation like this. Live at Freeman High School, Adam Mayer, KHQ Local News.
And a statement is just coming into the newsroom from Spokane Public School Superintendent Dr. Shelley Rettinger. She writes, in part, "My heart breaks for the students and families of the Freeman School District. Our thoughts and prayers go out to those affected. We all stand ready to offer our assistance, care, and support." When a tragedy like this happens to our kids, parents want to take away their pain. And during our breaking news coverage earlier today, we sat down with psychologist Michelle Estelle, who says in cases like this where we feel helpless, just opening up the conversation and sitting in grief with our loved ones and our kids helps.
The reality of being with our students and with one another through tragedy is actually a thing. That is actually helpful. It's actually the fix.
Now, she also explained that there are people who will experience vicarious trauma. That's when a person is traumatized by watching a loved one go through it. She also says to keep in mind there are no rules for how a person processes trauma and grief. And she says just validating someone's feelings can actually help. That's a fix, she says. And finally, she adds that parents should feel free to admit they don't have the answers and that they're hurting too. With that, we'll send it back out to Freeman with Dan and Steph.
All right, thank you so much. Again, if you're just joining us, one student was killed earlier today. 3 others rushed to the hospital.
That's right, and those 3 victims are at the hospital right now, and that's where we find our very own Joe McHale with an update on their conditions. Joe?
Steph, I was just given this letter from Providence Sacred Health, and I'll read it to you right now. Again, this is the first time I'm seeing this. It just says that there are 3 students who remain in satisfactory condition, so that's good news. 1 patient is undergoing surgery right now, and that update on that patient will be coming in sometime later this evening. So that's the good news. That was the first bit of good news throughout this entire tragedy today. When I was here earlier and got that update from staff here at Sacred Heart, I was here earlier at the ER where ambulances arrived on scene. We couldn't get very close, of course, for privacy reasons, but I did talk to staff here who are just thankful that they are so well trained to handle situations like this.
Chaos and fear struck Freeman High School Wednesday morning. Shortly after several shots were fired inside the school, ambulances were arriving at Sacred Heart Medical Center's emergency room.
Good afternoon.
A relieved hospital staff held a press conference just hours after the shooting. All 3 students injured reported in stable condition. Chief of General Surgery, Dr. Michael Moore, credited his staff, saying they're well trained for large traumatic events.
We had several trauma rooms available. We had 8 operating rooms available. And fortunately, did not need much of that.
Parents and family are with the 3 victims at the hospital, a remedy Dr. Moore says they provided once the students were stable.
One thing that's very important in this is it's frightening. I think that is a point that anyone can understand. And just like when these young people come in, we try and get mom and dad in there with them. They want to see mom and dad. They don't want to see us. It is time to spend time with your children, to bring them close, extend that love and care and support, and say that if this happens at close to home, we're there.
Just to echo the statements Dr. Moore made earlier, very frightening. I did go inside of the ER waiting area just moments ago, and I did have a chance to visit with some friends of the victims. Now, they would not go on camera, understandably, just a little shooken up still from today's events, but that's what it is, shooken up and frightened. But thankfully, those 3 victims here at Sacred Heart in stable, satisfactory condition tonight. Back to you, Dan and Steph, out at Freeman High School.
All right, thank you, Joe McHale, with our team coverage there at Sacred Heart. And now Kevin Parker, former state representative, joins us now. And Kevin, back in 1999, you actually were at Columbine when we saw the bloodbath, if you will, unfold there. What were your thoughts when you heard about the shooting here at Freeman?
Well, I hear a lot about the school shootings across the country. It's always harder, though, when it's in your own community. And it's even more emotional when your kids are of school age. So I think this one, for me personally, was more emotional than a lot of them have been.
What are these families going through right now?
A lot. lot. One of the biggest challenges for families right now are the students that were at Freeman are going to want to gather together. That's probably already starting. And so for a parent, what they want more than anything is to hug their child and be with them. But what that child really needs is to be with their friends right now and know that their parents are there waiting for them when they want to come home later tonight and tomorrow.
That's some very good advice. And you have set something up with CHAPS for them to do that. Can you tell us about what's happening tomorrow?
Yeah, I didn't set that up. That's all Celeste Shaw. But Celeste and CHAPS, right off Spokane Cheney, is offering free coffee, free food of whatever the students, faculty, or any Freeman community member would like from 9 to 3 p.m. So it's a place where they can go and hang out. They have places to hang out outside, inside. It's a great place to hang out.
Good.
So she's doing that just for the Freeman community.
So it's community. But what should the kids go through? How can their parents help them in these days to come actually deal with and rationalize what had just happened today?
It's going to be important that kids know that their parents are there for them as they want them to be. It's also important for the parents to communicate life is going to be okay and your life will resume and the sun will rise. That's very important because for a lot of students they feel, gosh, I don't know if I'm ever going to feel happy again. How can I feel happy when I had a schoolmate that lost their life today? But they're going to need to be reminded it will be okay. And in time, it's important for students to seek counseling. Maybe not right away, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month.
Did you seek counseling?
I did about a year after, and it was one of the smartest things I did. And if we look at Columbine students, 15-ish years out now, there's a big difference of the students that sought counseling and those that didn't. And generically speaking, the ones that sought counseling are living pretty healthy lives these days.
Is there anything that we in the Spokane community can do to help this Freeman community?
Well, I honestly, the first thing is to get word out about CHAPS. That's pretty cool that they're doing that. I think also the news will move on naturally, as it did with Columbine, as it always does, and there will come a point where the Freeman community maybe feel a little left behind. So it's important we as a community remind them is, no, we are very cognizant of you. And then what I always ask everyone is, one of the best things we can do is not to identify the shooter, because the shooters crave this attention, and they crave to see their name in lights, and they crave to read the newspaper with it, and they crave to hear about it.
Hurts my heart for their families tonight, too.
Thank you so much for sharing this.
Okay. All right, we're going to toss it back inside to Sean and Kalai.
All right, Dan and Stephanie live at Freeman High School. Well, tragedies like this, our community, we've seen it time and time again, always comes together. Tonight, there are several vigils being held where you can show your support.
St. John's Cathedral at 7 o'clock tonight. That's near Sacred Heart in Spokane. They are holding a vigil.
Valley Real Life from 6:30 to 8 tonight. That's on Barker Road in Green Acres.
And also tonight, Fairfield Community Church in Fairfield will be holding a vigil. Also a vigil at River Park Square in downtown Spokane.
And we're going to take a break. And our thoughts and prayers are with the Freeman community tonight.